Hey everyone, this is Kevin with Divinely Designed, and I have a mixed media video tonight. This one is called Cherish, and the photo is of my mom and dad when it was their anniversary several years ago. Okay, I'm using a couple of 12 by 12 pieces of paper here. This is a pattern piece of paper, and I cut an inch off of both sides, and this solid one I cut a half inch off, and then the pink one I left 12 by 12, and I'm just gonna mount them together. Now I intended to use some blue fern products, and this is one of the blue fern chipboard pieces. Um, Later on you'll see me, I cut this apart so I don't actually use it exactly sort of the way I intended it. This is some other blue fern chipboard that I'm going to use some Versamark here to emboss with um, white embossing powder from Zing, and I'm just applying the Versamark and then um, covering the chipboard in the embossing powder. After this, I'm going to move on to some more chipboard here. This is going to be the title to the page. Again, using some Versamark ink, and then for this, I'm using some Zing. I think the name of this is grapefruit, actually, but it's a really hot pink. And I applied the Versamark once, embossed it, and then used the Versamark again with another layer of embossing powder. So I embossed it twice. I do like doing that with some of the chipboard pieces. It makes them stand out a lot. For those first chipboard pieces, I didn't do that, and I was okay with it. Now here, I'm going to spend a bunch of time um, doing some embossing on this. Now I'm going to emboss the flowers first, and I use Lindy's Stamp Gang Terracotta Red embossing powder. Next, I'll move on to doing the middle circle piece, and I'll use some Recollections Glacier embossing powder, which is a nice bright blue. And then finally, I end up moving on to sort of the leaves, and for that, I will use a Lindy Stamp Gang Reindeer Moss Green is the name of the embossing powder I will use for that. Now, my intention was to use this whole chipboard piece for the photo and keep it together. However, later on, when I go to put the photo together, I really don't like the blue of the chipboard circle in the center, but I still wanted to use the circle for my picture frame, so I'll end up cutting the sort of leaves and flower portion away from the circle, and then use them separately as their own elements. And I'll cover up the blue on the circle eventually. Just finishing up the embossing here. The Lindy Stamp Gang embossing powders are really nice to work with. They have a nice shimmer to them. Okay, going back to my pattern paper, which is sort of the main field of the where I'll put all my stuff, covering it with some clear gesso just to give me a non-porous surface because I intend to use some gelatos. So just using some clear gesso, and then I'll come in with my heat gun and dry that off. It's a little hard to see here, but this paper has sort of a fleur-de-lis pattern in it, but it's in a soft pink and green, and that's why I used those colors in my mat. So the mat are sort of this bright pink and green color as well. And now I'm going to put together my my paper where I'm going to put all my mixed media elements. So just layering the green onto the pink, and then I'll layer my pattern paper onto the green layer, so that there's like a 1/4 inch of each border piece around the pattern paper itself. I'm going to come in again with some more clear gesso and just, oh, that was my kitty who came to say hello and stop by. That was the girl, Artemis. I'm going to take some more clear gesso and just go around the ends. So I gesso the pink and the green paper that I had just adhered the pattern paper to. Again, I'm looking for kind of a non-porous surface because I intend to work with some gelatos. Just drying that gesso off again. In a second here, you'll see me pull out a bunch of gelatos. Now these are all metallic gelatos that I'm using today. And I didn't write down the colors, so I forget exactly what they are. But this is sort of like a tan or a very light brown, and I'll use a little bit of red also to kind of warm it up and give me kind of a warm beigey color around the edges. I'll come back a little bit after I get this blended in with some darker brown around the very edge, and then finally a very dark brown and a little bit of quantity to give my edges sort of that distressed look. Now I'm just using some water in a spray bottle and kind of spraying it on to the areas, and then using my fingers to kind of blend it in. I want the edges to be darker and it to lighten up in the center. So I'm just sort of pushing the color from the gelatos around a little bit, adding a little bit more gelato. In the middle, I used some white gelato and a little bit of that sort of pinkish tan color. Just a little bit. This is the darker colors going around the edge with them. And I'll switch to a baby wipe at some point also when I'm trying to sort of, instead of just move the colors around, I'm sort of trying to blend them a little bit better. Just trying to give a little bit of a distressed look to the edges, giving it sort of a border. Now this is some paper that has a tulle pattern on it. It's actually a stamp I had pre-stamped. The stamp is from Impression Obsession, and I stamped it on both sides, and I'm spraying it here with some water. I stamped it with Stampin' Up! Ink, and I actually liked the water effect that it did. It kind of made the picture kind of fuzzy, and I was going for kind of a fabric kind of effect. Now, I spend a bunch of time on this. First adding some water so that the paper fibers are very malleable, and then I'm going to come in here with some Lindy's Stamp Gang sprays and kind of darken it up and take away some of that white. So this is a brown, and then I'll come in with a black and kind of go around the edges and use the baby wipe and kind of darken it up again some. I was trying to make it look like fabric, and it was working okay. As I kind of played with it, you can kind of mush it around and put some folds in it, and it sort of looks like fabric. But in the end, because of the placement issues, I didn't like how it ended up looking, so I ended up actually not using that piece. But I do like the stamp that came with it and that I made it with. So these are some Heidi Swap sprays, so just adding just a little kind of mist of pink there, and then putting on a whole bunch of dots and making some bigger dots with an eyedropper here, but just sort of splashing them on in kind of a random pattern. I'll come back here with a heat tool in a second and start to dry them up, and I'll use a paper towel to blot some of the bigger sort of pieces of liquid that are there. So here I'm playing with this tulle stamp thing again, trying to use some fabric, and it was kind of okay, but just couldn't make it work. I didn't like the way, that's where I put the end up putting the picture, and I just didn't like having that piece at the top. Now you'll see lots of paper flowers here, and I made these beforehand. These are all from Heartfelt Creations. I recently went to a paper crafting festival convention kind of thing, and bought a whole bunch of paper Heartfelt Creations stamps and dies, and they have these really beautiful flowers. It took me a long time to make them actually, but they came out just really really pretty. So here I'm just kind of playing with layout. Where can I kind of put things? Here's where I'm breaking apart that chipboard from earlier, and I don't like the blue to go along with the sort of pink theme I'm going. So I used some heavy gesso to cover up the other side, which was just chipboard. And then I'll take my heat gun out and dry that off. And then I'm going to use one of the gelatos, a red gelato, kind of a dark red, to color in that circle. And just use my finger to sort of smear around the colors. So originally I was going to put the picture on the right bottom, but it just didn't feel okay with the flowers. So I ended up putting the picture sort of on the left top to middle, and just playing with the arrangement of the flowers themselves. Now that one flower that I have there now, I actually fussy cut out, but it has the stamp, so I'm stamping it on the piece of paper, and then I'm going to layer that on top of the stamp. But I'm coloring in some of the leaf portions of the stamp that are not fussy cut out. So I'm going for kind of a multi-layer effect here. The green kind of buds are on the very bottom, then the flowers are fussy cut out and they have the next layer, and then on top of that I actually punched out some other flowers that are more three-dimensional, and they're on top of that as well. So I like the effect that it sort of gave to it later on. I did adhere it down with some glue, but I left the edges of the fussy cut flowers kind of not pushed down all the way, so they can kind of curl up. So if you look close, you kind of get a sneak peek of some of the stamping underneath. And then I'm just sort of fluffing up the little flowers. The rest here, I'm just playing with placement of my paper flowers and gluing them all down and putting the final layout together. And it's just about to come together pretty quickly here. I will come in with it's a shimmer spray that I made myself with it's called Diamond Dust Mica from one of my soap making suppliers, and that I mixed in some alcohol, and I will spray the flowers with it to give them a lot of shine. Now, at some point, I think my camera kind of cut off here, so I think I missed the actual spraying of the glimmer, the sort of shiny stuff on it. But you'll notice in some of my final pictures, you'll probably see some of the shine. I think my iPad ran out of space, but I get the majority of it here. So just laying down those final chipboards, then I'll put the picture in place and put the remaining flowers, just sort of playing with what looks good here in terms of where the flowers should go. So yeah, I think my camera's about to sort of turn off here, and it'll be a little bit of a jump. Yeah, right there. So this is the final layout I had. You can see that I've put all the flowers down, and I think I've actually already applied the shimmer spray, so just moving it back and forth here, so hopefully you can catch a little glimpse of some of that shimmer that's on there. And then I have a couple of still photos for you, some close-ups, to take a look at the elements here a little bit better. And that's about it. If you like this video, click on that thumbs up button, and if you aren't subscribed to my channel and you like crafty and soapy videos, click on that subscribe button. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and I will try to get answers for you. Thanks very much for watching, and you all have a great day.